This actually began here in Lazuka, the capital of Zambia, back in 1983 when I was a young girl of 5. For some reason, I always woke at 3 a.m. on the dot whilst living at our home at the time, and found myself walking down the hallway. We had security lights in the garden, therefore shadows would play off trees, bushes, and windows onto the interior walls of the house, like a Russian puppet show. With a security guard present each night, I would think the shadowy shape of a man appearing or disappearing suddenly was simply that, our guard doing the rounds. It wasn't until one final night, after my usual check of the houses, I was walking back to my room when I just felt something behind me. Wish I hadn't, because the shadowy figure of a man was right behind me, away from the walls and lights, but very distinctive. I was scared, but to be honest, looking back now, cannot even remember feeling evil, just curiosity. A few months after, I started experiencing visions and dreams. I would start having a dream of a little funny white man standing in my doorway, looking at me with a mean little grin on his face. Then, he would walk off in the direction of my brother's room, whereby I once woke up to hear my brother screaming for my mom, saying there was something in his room. This experience happened only once, but the dreams of this little man continued. When we moved to the UK in 1986, my final experience occurred with this man. I heard my name being called from downstairs. When I reached the top of the stairs from my bedroom, looking down into the pitch black, and feeling utter malevolence directed at me, I couldn't see anything, but it was the same sensation I feel when dreaming of the white man. Let's just say at the age of 11, I had the good sense not to investigate. After that, I stopped experiencing little white man, but I feel I became susceptible to other things from then on. Our house in the UK is set on what was once the Beanoak Estate Farm. It's said that a mass grave of 1800s color of victims lies within the vicinity of our estate, which could explain the experience, and not just for me. Our cat would get spooked, and my mother was terrified one night. Our cat would suddenly sit up and stare at the corner of the room, or the doorway, or an armchair, and suddenly start to growl and raise his hackle. Then he would move his head as though watching something walk through the room. It frightened me one night when he sat up from my lap and dug his claws into my thighs. The growling reached a crescendo, as though he was going into battle with another Tom. I got so spooked, I left the room and went upstairs. My cat had left via the cat flap into the night. He wouldn't come back until the morning. What really spooked me the most was, this also happened during the day one February morning. I can handle the nighttime frights because of the sense of normality when the sun rises. But when you are invaded during the day, all your security is shattered. My brother and I both experienced what is now learned as sleep paralysis event at exactly the same time, one night. Both of us also witnessed just before a sudden flash of brilliant blue. For two people of differing sexes to experience at exactly the same time makes it disturbing, and we still discuss it today. My other experience of sleep paralysis was when I was fully awake. Lying on my tummy reading a book on my bed, I suddenly had the overwhelming terror swamp me from my feet upwards, and I couldn't move. Then, at the foot of my bed, I could feel as though someone was taking a step onto the mattress between both feet. When I could finally move, I turned around to see an indentation of a foot where the sensation was. Thank you for taking your time to read my experiences, for that is all I can call them. I did have one other experience, but it's too terrifying to write down, and causes me fear, even to this day. When I was 6 or 7 months pregnant with my son Anthony, I had a terrifying nightmare. I believe this nightmare was a portal to the afterlife, that what I saw was in fact a ghost trying to communicate with me. Every night I would sleep with the bedroom door half open, and also had the hallway light on, just because of the weird and bizarre events that would occur in this old home. I'd always thought I'd hear laughter during the day, sounds of doors opening and closing, and other little things that made me convinced my house was haunted. One evening, I swore I saw a small dark shadow figure float into the kitchen from my bedroom. It happened so fast, I didn't have much time to process it. My nightmare was very similar to this experience. I was convinced that I woke up in my bed before. At least at the time I thought I was conscious. I was glued to my bed, couldn't move at all, virtually paralyzed. I started hearing strange noises, like a gargling coming from the hallway outside of my room. I remember struggling to open and close my eyes. All of a sudden, I was able to focus my eyes and move my head where I could see that the door was open. I saw this little girl standing in my doorway. She was a black shadow from 5 feet away from my bed. She approached closer to me, all while I was still paralyzed and couldn't move. The black shadow whispered, "Don't be scared, I'll be home soon." That's when I woke up, sweating and screaming. Even after realizing it was a nightmare, I could still feel the presence of the shadow in that house. The same girl from my nightmare. I thought it was a bit ridiculous, because I knew at that point, my mind had just conjured this up in my head, even with all the previous signs of ghostly activity. What's even weirder, a few days after I received a call from my sister, she was very emotional because she announced to me that she was having a child. The reason why my sister was so emotional was because she had tried for years and years to have children, and she was never able to. Her doctor even told her that she was never going to be able to produce a child. I bet you the shadow from my nightmare came back as her living child. I was never able to find out the history of this house or who lived there, but I can bet you that the little girl used to, and she told me that she was coming back to life. I've noticed that you don't have any ghosts listed for the University Calgary residences in Calgary, Alberta. I had a strange experience in the residence tower called Randall Hall. I'll give you some brief information. There are 2 identical towers, plus some apartment-style residences that were built in the late 1960s when the university was founded. They're both 7 stories tall, with a central communal lounge and 3 hallways radiating out like spokes. Each hallway has 11 rooms and a bathroom. Originally, they were built as a female dorm and a male dorm. I spent 3 years of my university living in Randall Hall. The room that I shared with my roommate was in the co-ed hallway of the 6th floor of Randall. This kind of applies because we shared all facilities with guys. Toilet stalls, urinals, sinks, and showers were all communal. Think Ally McBeal. And we often had guys hang out in our room. Let's just say that there were quite a few of us engineers on that floor. I started the year living in room 661. One night, I woke frequently, and I could have sworn that there was someone in my room, sitting in the chair at my roommate's desk. I passed it off as being asleep, But the next day I did ask my roommate, were there any people in our room last night? All she said was yeah. I thought that one of the guys had come in during the night. Weird. Anyway, a little later in the year, I moved into room 557 on the same side of the hallway, 2 doors down. We started noticing that in the common room, which was a large open area in the center of the spokes, one of the elevators would often come up to our floor on its own accord, open, close, then go back down to the main floor. Sometimes it would stay on our floor with the door open for almost an hour before going back down. My real experience came during reading break. I guess your guys' equivalent to spring break, only we have ours in early to mid-February, and most people leave, because the skiing's awesome in the Rockies, only a few hours away. In our hallway, the only people not gone was me, my roommate, the girls across the hall, and the girl at the end of the hall, on our side by the fire escape. To start my real story, I'll give you guys a little explanation about how our room was laid out. If you walk into the door from the hallway, there's a closet on each side that extends about 2 feet into the room, that goes all the way to each wall, no doors in the closets. The room is approximately square. My roommate's bed was against the left wall, with her desk against the window, directly across the door, and the chair between her headboard and the desk. My bed was against the window, with the headboard against the right wall, with my desk along the right wall. I awoke one night because I swore that the door to our room had opened, and that one of the guys from the guy's wing had come in. He had gone on a date that night and was a close friend. I looked over at my roommate's bed, and it looked like this guy was whispering something to her. I found it kinda creepy though, that instead of crouching by her bed like a normal person would do, he was standing with his legs straight, bent at the waist, with his face about 2 inches from hers. Now, I got kinda pissed off, because it was the middle of the night, and this guy had come in to tell Lauren about his date. I wanted to see what time it was, so I sat up in bed so I could see around my desk to my alarm clock, which was on a dresser in the closet. It was 2:30-ish in the morning, so I turned my head to yell or whisper strongly at this guy. Then I realized it wasn't who I thought it was. This is the creepy part. He stayed bent over my roommate in the same position, but slowly turned his head to look at me. While he was turning his head, this grin spread across his face. One could interpret this grin as malevolent. I sure did at the time. Then he slowly stood straight up and took a few steps backward towards the closet, folded his arms across his chest, and looked at me with the same scary grin on his face. It was strange, because really, he had no facial features. Nothing of a face that I could see, except for this grin that I could more sense than see. Well, that was enough for me. Like any 20 going on 6-year-old, I dove beneath the covers of my bed and stayed there all night. This was very hard to do, since the heating is very efficient in those buildings, and most of the rooms are usually hot enough to be in shorts and tanks in. Anyway, I didn't sleep again that night. After a week or so, thinking about this experience, having insomnia, and sleeping with the light on, I have second thoughts on what was going on there. I think that yes, he was intentionally trying to scare someone, but only out of a sense of fun, because he knew he could. I think he had my roommates in his target sights, and he had his face by my roommates, waiting for her to wake up with this ghost face 2 inches from hers. Well, you could wake my roommate up with a cherry bomb when she's sleeping, Never mind waking to a ghostly presence, like so many of us do. Instead, I woke up, and his grin was more of a, finally, someone's awake that I can scare grin. So that was it, other than the knocking, which is actually quite funny. It was about 2 days after my experience, when all 3 of our rooms got simultaneous knocks at 5:30 in the morning. My roommate got up to answer the door and scared the crap out of both her and the girl directly across from her by opening the door at the exact same time. Also, the girl at the end of the hall had her head out of the door, asking if someone had knocked. There was no one in the hall, and no way someone could have left without us hearing. The door into the central common room was on a mnemonic hinge and made a whining noise when you opened it. The door to the fire escape at the other end makes a crap load of noise, which echoes through the floors. The door to the bathroom also has a mnemonic hinge and bangs when it closes. Anyway, to close this outrageously long story out, I worked for housekeeping during the summer because the residents are rented out like hotel rooms. I didn't go back home in the summer. I was talking with the cleaner from the 6th floor while doing laundry one day. She related that she has had experiences with this guy over the last few years. She was cleaning a room after move out and had the door propped open with a garbage can. A guy poked his head around the door, looked her in the eye, kicked the garbage out from in front of the door, and slammed it. There was no one there when she went to look. There are rumors that a guy got really stressed out during exams in the 80s and threw himself off the roof into the parking lot. I've not substantiated these claims, so who knows. I do know that the roofs are now off limits to students, whereas they weren't in the past. The cleaner says that he is quite shy and is only seen during summer, Christmas, on reading breaks, never when the residences are filled with people. This isn't the first time I've told someone this. Normally people don't believe me because I'm only 14, but I swear that everything I'm about to say is the honest truth. My first experience happened 6 years ago. My friend was sleeping over at mine. We couldn't sleep, so we were just talking in the dark. Well, it wasn't that dark because I had the curtains open. I remember it being a few minutes past midnight. I also remember thinking my friend had stood up because there was a shadow on the wall opposite us, but she was still lying down. But she too had seen the shadow. It had no features and was only head and shoulders. It was where my light switch was. We both looked outside to see if anyone was there. Nothing. So we started to really freak out and closed the curtains as quick as possible. And when we reopened them a few seconds later, it was gone. I have no explanation for this. I definitely wasn't dreaming, and neither of us had imagined it. Later on that year, I was alone in the house watching a video. I stopped the video to get something to eat downstairs. When I came back, the video had been took out from my video player and was on my bed. My next experience happened maybe about 5 or 4 years ago. I was on the computer, and I was the only one in the house, as my brother was out and my mom and dad were out working. I didn't have any music on at the time, and the TV wasn't on either. Basically, things were silent. I heard this voice coming from downstairs calling my name. It was definitely a woman's voice, maybe in her late 20s. I wasn't sure at this time. I really started to freak out. It lasted for around 5 minutes, and then it stopped. The next couple of times I heard it really scared me. The last time I heard it, I was home alone again. The TV was on mute, and I was on the computer again. The voice came from right next to me. It shouted my name into my ear. It shocked me so badly that I actually screamed so loud that the people next door heard me. Since then, I haven't heard it, but recently, I've been hearing music playing in and outside of my house. Also recently, things keep happening in my room. Like I keep feeling cold spots, and a lot of the time, I feel like I'm not the only one in the room. It's really scary. Plus, my TV has been on mute or changed channels when I'm nowhere near the remote. It scares me a lot. It shook me up so bad that I hate being alone in the house. This occurred roughly 20 years ago when I was 19 or 20, and I was sleeping over at my boyfriend's apartment in Spring Valley, California. My boyfriend left for work by 4 a.m., and I was alone in the apartment. This one morning after he left, I awoke on my back to a heaviness in the room. It was still dark, but becoming dawn. I looked to my right, and standing next to me by the bed was this tall black shrouded shadow entity. I was terrified. I could feel its presence surrounding me. Then, it spoke. I was lying there wide-eyed and in shock. I'm not still sure how I heard it. Was it audible, or just in my head? The voice was deep and gruff, and asked, "What are you doing here?" I'm familiar with some experiences with the paranormal, just never had it been so terrifying. I closed my eyes and began the Lord's Prayer. By the last words, "Deliver me from evil, Amen," the room had cleared. I felt a change immediately, and when I reopened my eyes, all was normal again. I told my boyfriend later that day, and he thought it was his deceased grandfather being curious. My boyfriend's grandma was recently staying with him, and she would tell him stories of the grandfather visiting her. Possible, I guess, but I still wonder what the black shrouded entity was, and what its intentions were. For many years, I had a gray cat named Kitty. Kitty didn't like many people. She mainly only liked me. She always slept up against my legs at night, on the outside of the covers. She loved to be close to me. After she died, I was absolutely miserable. I missed her so much. After a few days, I started getting a glimpse of her walking around the house, out of the corner of my eye. I didn't say anything to anyone for a while. One day, my aunt said that she didn't realize that we had gotten another cat after Kitty had died. I told her that we didn't have any other cats, or any other pets for that matter. She was absolutely convinced that she had seen a cat walk across the doorway in our living room. One night, just as I was going to sleep, I felt Kitty jump up onto the bed and cuddle up against me. I could feel her pressing up against my legs. I tried my best to convince myself that it was just my imagination, but my husband felt her jump onto the bed also. Over the years, she has gradually stopped coming around us so much. She still shows up whenever I'm upset or sick. I guess she just likes to comfort me, just like she did when she was alive. Hello. I grew up in an old apartment building in the Fordham Hills section of the Bronx. When I was about 14 years old, I was speaking on the telephone to my best friend, who lived upstairs on the 5th floor of the building. My apartment was on the 2nd floor. My friend said that she was going to go down to my apartment in a few minutes. As soon as I hung up the telephone, there was a knock on the door. I wondered how my friend could have possibly made it down 3 flights of stairs so quickly. As we hung up the phone that second, I went to the door and looked out at the peephole to see if it was her. There, at the door, stood a tall, young-looking man wearing a ruffled white shirt, a thick black belt, black pants, and black boots that went almost to his knees. Hanging from the side of his belt was a sword or a saber. As I stared at him, it appeared as though he was looking right at me with piercing blue eyes, even though the door was between us. I then noticed that I could see the number on the apartment door across from mine through his shirt. I quickly ran from the door, realizing what I had seen, thoroughly frightened, and called my friend, asking her to hurry and come down as I was alone in the house. I will never forget it for as long as I live. I did some research and learned that there was Revolutionary battles on in a Mug Fort Dam Hill. I came to the conclusion that the ghost was a Revolutionary War soldier, probably British from the clothing. I only wish I could learn more. Nothing occurred for the rest of the time that I lived in that apartment. Thanks for having a great site where people can share their experiences. Like a lot of people, I've had friends and family members pass away. One of my best friends was John, who died from pancreatic cancer while still in his early 30s. Many years later, I started a habit while praying. I asked God to help me always remember my friends and family who have passed away, who influenced me, and who are a big part of my life. Then I think of their names and say them silently in prayer. About a year ago, our friend and family priest passed away, and I attended the funeral mass. As I was kneeling in the pews, I felt someone beside me. I looked to my right, and there, plain as day, was John. He was there for only 2, maybe 3 seconds, and then disappeared. I shook my head and looked again, but he was gone. I hadn't thought about John at all that day, and I may never know why he decided to show himself. I know that God puts people into your life for a reason, and I know that even after they are gone, they're always with you. I love you, brother. Thanks for the visit. And I love you guys. From the bottom of my heart, welcome to 2021. And if you made it this far, that means you must have passed 2020, the year of the gods. I don't know what I'm saying, guys. But thank you so much for tuning into this YouTube channel and this video, of course. I know you guys have been really patient while you waited for this video to come out, but I want you to like this video. It really helps me so much. Please, please, please make a comment. Please like the video. Oh, I already said that. But please share the video anywhere you can. It really helps me for the algorithm. And let me know in the comment section below, as usual, which video you like the most, or which comment do you, or which, let's think about this. Which story you liked in the comment section below. Wow, I am having a really bad start to 2021. But guys, I'm not going to edit that out. I'm just going to be authentic because sometimes as humans we make mistakes, and that's the way it is. But really, guys, I'm not going to say anything funny other than just be yourself. Okay, guys. I think I'm a little bit exhausted right now, but I love you guys. For the love of God, please just share the video for my sake, and just, you know, meet me in the comment section below and let's have a good chat. Let me know anything in the comments. Just say hi. Do whatever you can if you're watching the video, and I'll see you in the next video. Love you.